Okay, we're gonna put this down because we're going straight from the thumbnail to starting this video. Alrighty. What's up, it's Jan back at it again with another nerdy bookish video. This is gonna be my March 2024 wrap up. If you're new here, I do all my wrap-ups in the reread, rewrite, burn format. I started this, I don't know, 3 years ago now. I just know it was January of 2021. Yeah, so 3 years ago now. This used to be a Stitch mug, like Lilo and Stitch, but I fairly recently switched it to a skull. In this skull, there are pieces of paper with the titles I read in the month. The reread, rewrite, burn is a book tag where you pick out 3 titles and say whether you would reread, rewrite, or burn them. So it's basically fuck, marry, kill, but make it bookish. As with all wrap-ups, I start with my little recap, and I did actually calculate the number of physical pages this month, which I don't tend to do every single month because it takes a lot of math and a lot of time. I read 24 books in the month of March, 13 BIPOC authors out of those 24. The number of physical pages I read, 6,729. The reason I only keep track of physical pages is because I have a goal of 100 physical pages every single day. I've been keeping that up for like 4 years now. I do read a lot of audiobooks as well during my commute to work, sometimes at work. I just don't like to do the math for all that. I only count my physical pages for my 100-page daily goal, if that makes sense. But with all that being said, audiobooks do count as reading. Obviously, that should go without being said, but you know, the world can be wild, as I always say. Anyway, my best book of the month was All the Sinners Bleed by S.A. Cosby, who's the author of Razorblade Tears. I got this book from the library. I got the physical copy as well as the audiobook, so I was switching back and forth between the two. I absolutely loved it, gave it 5 stars. I actually liked it more than Razorblade Tears. I thought I gave Razorblade Tears 5 stars too, but apparently I gave it a 4. But either way, I did like the premise of this more. This had a serial killer involved. It was set in a small town. We follow the sheriff of the town, who is a black sheriff. So it talks about the betrayal notions of being a black cop and all the like stigmas and judgment that comes with that, and it really like shifts your perspective on some things. And also the fact that this small town looks so perfect from the outside, but then it's so corrupt at its core, and there's this serial killer, there's school shootings, there are all these like horrific body horror things that went on with these killings. The serial killer targeted black boys and girls. The body horror was definitely there. That kept me captivated regardless of how horrible it was. It has a lot of reality horrors. It is a thriller, but I don't know. Part of me felt like it was more of a horror, but either way, it definitely had those body horror elements and a lot of really good, important discussions about the cop industry, police brutality, and the facade that predominantly white towns and neighborhoods try to give off when there are things that are beneath the surface that the public doesn't see. So a lot was covered in that book, and I highly recommend, and I think eventually I will try to get a physical copy for my shelves. It's just not my priority at the moment since I just read it so recently, but yes, I would love to read it again in the future. The worst book. Okay, I read this on my Kindle for the Gavin vlog, so I'm not gonna go too in-depth with it. I will just link my Gavin collab vlog down below where I read his worst books and he read mine. I'll link both our videos down below. I read Does It Hurt by H.D. Carlton. I read a little bit of it on my Kindle when I got my hair done, but otherwise I was primarily reading it via audio, and it was so bad. I gave it 1 star. The shark sex scene carried the whole book, and I am really proud of my editing of like side-by-side Gavin footage and my footage in that vlog, so please watch that video if you haven't already. It's the hardest I've ever worked on a video, so that will be linked down below. I would highly appreciate it if you check it out, but 1 star, those are my thoughts. Everything was cringy. Moving on. Last year, I fulfilled my goal of reading 1 nonfiction every month at least, so this year I decided to continue it, and I actually read 3 different nonfiction books this month. I don't have physical copies of any of them, but I read Black Girl, You Are Atlas by Renee Watson via audio. This is a poetry collection. I saw that it was available on Libby, and I was like, okay, I'm really feeling a short audiobook while I work right now, so I listened to it, and I didn't realize it just came out this year. I think it came out in February. It was incredible. I gave it 5 stars. Renee Watson's voice, phenomenal poetry reader. It just enhanced the reading experience even further. It talks about Michelle Obama Obama, Breonna Taylor, being a Black woman and navigating life with everything that comes with that, and like finding your strength within. And that's why it says you are Atlas, as in the Greek god Atlas, where, you know, he's carrying the world on his shoulders type thing. I would highly recommend that poetry collection if you wanted just a quick read that makes an impact. Then I read Dear Girls by Ali Wong, who is a female comedian, an Asian female comedian. My biggest surprise with this book was that it involved a lot of Filipino rep. I'll try to link all my vlogs below because I pretty much do vlog every single book I read for the most part. Just some of the books will be on Patreon because, like, for my full moon book club and monthly Patreon readathon vlogs, those books are all there obviously, but otherwise I do vlog everything on YouTube. But I listened to this audiobook as well, and yeah, it had a lot of Filipino rep. I gave it a 4-star because there were 2 chapters, chapter 2 and 3 I believe, that were all about childbirth, all about her birth, like graphic scenes about her birth and leading up to it and the aftermath. Chapter 3 was literally called Tips on Giving Birth or something like that, and it's supposed to be like dear girls, as in like dear her daughters, this is what you need to do when you're preparing to have a kid, basically. And like, I don't want kids, and I actually don't like reading about them, and I don't like reading about a pregnancy and the birth thing, and yeah, I can't even like get the words out. That's why it's 4 stars. I typically rate memoirs 5 stars all the time, but this is just based on my personal issues and not judging Allie's life or anything, you know what I mean? I hope that makes sense. I hope none of that came off wrong. I'm sorry if it did. That was not my intention. I also read Film for Her, which was another poetry collection. It's by Orion. I always forget their last name. It's another poetry collection with a lot of photographs as well. I read this one on Kindle Unlimited. I've been eyeing this book for years now. I keep picking it up at Barnes & Noble because it's a nice, like, almost coffee table book to look at with all the colorful pictures. The Kindle, I will say, did not do it justice because it's in black and white, but that didn't take away from how beautiful the writing was, how insightful the writing was, and how the poems kind of made you appreciate the little things in life a little bit more and take less things for granted. It's really just about her life, her family, and how she grew up and how she went to Paris and all her other travels in her lifetime so far, and what she's learned all throughout. Alright, those are the 3 nonfiction books. The next category is the Buzzwordathon challenge, which is hosted by Kayla from Books and Lala. She basically chooses a theme or word that you have to find a title that matches for, and you read that book, or you read books with that thing for like a week. It's just a fun little thing to do every month. And this month, the buzzword was character names. So this is one of the first books I read of the month, just to get out of the way. A Love Song for Ricky Wilde by Tia Williams. Obviously, Ricky Wilde is the buzzword. I gave this 3 stars. I have more in-depth thoughts in my Aardvark Book Club collab vlog. This had a twist that I was not expecting. I knew going into this that it had some sort of magical realism thing going on, but the twist is something I absolutely love in books. It was just so hard not to compare it to 7 Days in June by this author, because that is one of my favorite romances of all time, and the writing just didn't match. It didn't check out. I also am a little bit biased because I am not a huge fan of music related books, and I always say the one exception is Daisy Jones and the Six. This is a dual timeline. Once you figure out how they connect, that's when the twist hits as well, and I did like it from there. There were some emotionally hard-hitting parts, not all throughout, but especially towards the end, and you follow this girl who runs her own flower shop, and she's grown up with sisters who always gave her shit for being herself and not being what they want and what her family expects. There were some things that were relatable. Of course, it's a romance, so there are some tender, lighthearted scenes as well. So overall, it was a decent book, and if any of that sounds interesting to you, I would recommend it. The next category is Kindle books, because I do try to be intentional with utilizing my Kindle every single month, since I do pay for the Kindle Unlimited subscription. The first book that I finished in March was The Eyes Are the Best Part by Monica Kim, and this also goes for the 1 arc per month that I try to read, because this is an arc. It comes out in June 25th, I want to say. This is about this Korean family. The mom is right off the bat acting kind of weird about these eyeballs. She's like convincing her daughters to eat this fish eyeball, and she's like convinced that it's good luck, and it really is like an Asian culture thing to eat the fish's eyeballs. I don't know, well, I'm not saying it's only an Asian thing, but like my family, like my uncle and my stepdad, have eaten fish eyeballs in front of me. So so I was kind of just used to it. It wasn't like horrific to me to read about. The writing did get kind of gross at some points, and the main character, the older sister that we follow, she does get unhinged, so I appreciated this. I gave this 5 stars. It also discusses a lot of topics relating to racism, fetishes, and just misogyny. The mom starts dating this white guy. He is just a horrible piece of shit. So yeah, there's a lot going on in this. Once things started rolling, it was a quick read. So thank you to NetGalley. It was a fun time. Another Kindle book I read. Oh, Joey has this physically. Okay, so every month on my Patreon, Joey and I do these unmuted and unhinged reading sprints where we choose an extreme horror novella or just a horror novella in general and read it in one sitting. We stay unmuted so y'all hear all our visceral reactions. We have ambiance in the background, so it's just like regular sprints. You could read any book you want, no pressure if you're not into extreme horror. I usually read on Kindle Unlimited, and I buy Joey his physical copy to read with us. And in March we read No One Rides for Free by Judith Sonnet. I believe my patron Jasmine sent this book to Joey, so thank you so much. I gave this 3 stars. It wasn't like, I mean, it was gross. It was disturbing. It just wasn't written well. Judith Sonnet wrote this in 10 days, so I don't blame them, you know. But I mean, this is not for the faint of heart if you can't handle certain horror tropes. I would look them up. I don't want to spoil anything by saying what the tropes are, because some people are weird about that, but there's this family who goes on a little road trip, I believe, and there's this man who carjacks them, essentially, and makes them do some horrible things. But gave it 3 stars. It wasn't the best extreme horror novella I've ever read. And then Film for Her was also another Kindle book. Alright, the last goal that I have every month was to read a book of the month book every month to cut down this TBR, but I started partnering with Aardvark, and I think I'm gonna switch that over to reading an Aardvark Book Club book every month. It's still early in the year, and they're my goals. I can do what I want, okay? Who really cares at the end of the day? I did not get to a book of the month book this month. I started one. I started Jacqueline in Paris, but I didn't finish it. But for that Aardvark vlog, I read 3 of these, and then I read the 4th one in a different vlog. I'm just gonna go through them super quickly. A Love Song for Ricky Wilde, gave 3 stars. Come and Get It, I gave 2 stars. This was in the vlog after the Aardvark Book Club ones. This one was kind of a disappointment, to be honest. I really love Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reed. This was just following a bunch of college girls, and there was a little bit of, not really a twist, it was just like intense things that were happening in college life, but it wasn't anything special in my opinion, so hence the 2 stars. And then I read Sugar Baby by Celine St. Clair. I gave this 3 stars. It was really good in the first half, and then it lost steam in my opinion in the second half. This is about the sugar baby industry, but it's also following this woman of color who is just dealing with a bunch of things in life. It has a good sense of humor. Honestly, a forgettable story though. I just wanted it to be over by the end, but I had a fun time for a decent amount of it. And then lastly, The Clinic by Kate Quinn. I gave this one 4 stars. I read this in like a day and a half, and it's a pretty big thriller. I had the audiobook though, and it was a pretty good audiobook. I liked the reveals in this. I think it was paced really well despite the length of the book, most likely due to the short chapters. I loved how short these chapters were. It really increased the pace for me, and it kept my attention throughout the whole book because it was so quick in terms of turning pages. This is about this former pop star who is in a rehab facility, and she allegedly died by suicide, but her sister doesn't believe it, so she voluntarily admits herself to investigate, and she meets all the workers that worked with her sister, all the other clients that interacted with her sister, and then there are a few reveals about how this clinic operates, certain secrets, darker secrets that are going on over there, and yeah, the stuff about her sisters. So would highly recommend this. Yeah, those are the 4 Aardvark books. Again, my full thoughts are in those vlogs I mentioned. So we're gonna move on finally to the actual wrap up. First 3 books we have are The Clinic by Kate Quinn, Bonesmith by Nikki Pau-Prado, which was my full moon book club pick for March. I'll link the live show for this down below. And then All the Sinners Bleed by S.A. Cosby. These were all really good books. All the Sinners Bleed was the highest rated. That was 5 stars, and I said I would reread it, so would reread that. Oh no. I guess I would Okay, if we're being completely honest, I enjoyed Bonesmith. I gave it 4 stars, but my guest host Vish pointed out that the characters really weren't that developed, especially compared to this author's other series, the Crown of Feathers trilogy, I believe. So I think I'm okay with burning this. I'm definitely gonna read the sequel, but it's not like my favorite fantasy of all time. Like, I'm gonna keep it on my shelves, I'm not unhauling it, but it's not my favorite fantasy of all time. Like, it's not like I'm gonna reread it. So like, I don't really care to rewrite it, but if I were to rewrite it, it would be the character development. But it was just like easy peasy lemon squeezy listening, you know? Like, I listened to the audiobook, I followed along. Thank you to my patron Destiny for letting me use your Everend account because I needed it to make it in time for the live show. But I guess I would burn this because I could easily say rewrite this to make it shorter. I did say the pacing was good, but I genuinely don't think thrillers need to be more than 400 pages long, but this was like 430. This definitely could have been cut down quite a bit. For what it is, the pacing was good, the story was good. That's the verdict on those 3. Next ones. A Study in Drowning by Ava Reed, which I also read for the Gavin vlog. The Appeal by Janet, is it Hollett? I don't remember. But I also read that one for the Gavin vlog. And then, oh my god, Does It Hurt? Okay, so all 3 were for the Gavin vlog. Spoiler for the books I chose if you haven't watched it yet, sorry. I would burn Does It Hurt, obviously, my worst book. I would rewrite The Appeal. I guessed a lot of things, so make it less predictable. I think the character list, the list of individuals, that was 300 pages into the book. I think the reader needs that in the beginning because there are way too many characters, way too many POVs. The way that emails were formatted, you had to look at to and from of each message, and like your eyeballs just don't work that way to like get a grip on who is talking and who this message is being sent to. The Appeal is a thriller that again is over 400 pages, but it's all told through emails and other forms of mixed media. If it was just to and from, that's different, but it was to blank and then like the subject line and something else and then from. So then like your eyes just, it didn't flow well. I would rewrite that book in that sense. I gave that one 2 stars because the ending was predictable. It felt redundant. It felt cyclic. Like there were so many discussions about money that I didn't care for. I just wanted to know what was going on with the money, but like just the logistics of where and how much money, like I didn't give a shit. It just took way too long to get to where it was and the outcome was just not worth it. So I would rewrite that and then I would reread A Study in Drowning. I did like the ending of this book. I love the writing, love the atmosphere, the gothic vibes, the moody, melancholy, rainy, gloomy vibes were definitely there, and I had my expectations set in hell for this one. Maybe that's why I rated this 4 stars. I liked it a lot more than I expected because I heard so many mixed and negative reviews about this. It started off a little bit iffy and I still don't know if I like our main character too much. The storyline with the author and how fantasy elements were mixed into this as well, and then I really liked how the characters were carrying a lot of baggage. Like they have their current toxic things that they're dealing with and their past traumas that they're carrying with them. I just didn't expect them to be that deep, if I'm being honest. I think the reveals of the pieces of their lives were placed really well and just told to the reader in a well-written manner. Moving on, because I am losing my train of thoughts. Okay, whatever. No One Rides for Free, Nothing Burns as Bright as You, Sugar Baby. I would burn No One Rides for Free. I would rewrite this because I was expecting more of like a serious discussion about the sugar baby, sugar daddy industry. I think I wanted more of a deep dive and learn more about how things operate just because I'm nosy. But it was a lot less serious of a tone than I expected. I honestly couldn't tell you specific scenes at all. Like I don't remember a damn thing other than her like first sugar date or whatever. Just that alone, the fact that it's not memorable means there needs to be something done with this. Like I truly don't remember anything from this, and I didn't read it too long ago. So yeah, I would rewrite that, and then I would reread, what was the other one? Oh, I would reread Nothing Burns as Bright as You. I believe it's a story written in verse because it was a very poetic cadence when I listened to it, but yeah, I listened to it so I didn't see the physical words. But this is a sapphic love story story. There are some intense things that happen involving fire and a lot of feelings. This book is very emotionally charged. I even read the author's note. I said this in my vlog, but I read the author's note and it talked about how she was always taught to guard herself and protect her heart from boys, but never about girls. So that's why she was always more heartbroken with women, because she is more vulnerable with them. It was a very powerful story. I gave it 5 stars. I listened to it while I was like doing chores. It really stuck with me, and it was a hidden gem for sure, because it was one of those that I randomly just borrowed because it was available on Libby, and it was a short audiobook, and it packs a punch for sure. All right, the next 3 books we have are Old Country by Matt Query and Harrison Query, Come and Get It by Kylie Reed, Mermaid Saga Volume 2. I would burn Mermaid Saga Volume 2. I just wanted to read another manga series that was recommended to me, and there were only 2 omnibus volumes, but I didn't really care for it, to be honest. I was intrigued because it involved immortality, which is one of my favorite things in books. The mermaids looked horrific, but it was like a horror fantasy type of manga. It just didn't hit too well. It didn't do anything for me, really. I gave it 3 stars. It was alright, but I would burn it, which sucks because I want to burn this book. But I think I would rewrite this. This was apparently pitched to some people as dark academia. Not at all. I really liked this one scene with a dog and a Ring camera, and then this other scene with an EpiPen. Those were the most memorable of these scenes. But also the conversations in the beginning with the college girls just rambling. I think that was pretty realistic. We follow this woman who is writing a story, or is like a journalist or something, and writing about weddings, I think. She visits a college campus, or teaches at a college campus. I don't remember, but she talks to these college girls about weddings. There was a lot of insight, and there are a lot of good discussions in this. There are topics that she discusses that are heavier and involve racism and, you know, being a black woman or woman of color in general in this day and age, the society. But yeah, it's just really slow. Some of the writing just didn't flow well, so I would rewrite it in that sense, I guess. Not that I could do any better, like I always say, but for the sake of this video, okay? I also don't know what the pig's for. I think it's a school mascot is what one of my patrons told me, but I don't remember it being explained. And then I would reread Old Country, even though this took me forever to read. But this is one of Joey's favorite books of all time. I finally read it. It's on my 24 for 2024, so that was an accomplishment. I gave it 3 stars, so Joey was devastated. But I mean, I did enjoy the creepy parts. There are these different spirits that come to this land, this property, every single season. There's a different one, and there are rules and coping mechanisms and defense mechanisms that this older couple that was already on the property know, and they told this new couple that just moved in all about it. And then of course they thought they were crazy at first, but then things actually started happening every season, and we just followed the couple through that. I just didn't like the notion of the kids aspect and how that played a role in the storyline. Decisions were swayed by certain things involving having children, and I don't like that, okay? When a woman doesn't want kids in a book, I want her to stay that way, because there are not enough books about women who don't want kids and not feeling guilty about it. That's my take on Old Country. Gonna move on now. Black Girl You Are Atlas by Renee Watson. Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix, which is the last book that I read in the Gavin vlog, and then Film for Her. How am I gonna do this? How am I gonna do this? I would reread Black Girl You Are Atlas. I really enjoyed that book. I really enjoyed Film for Her too, but I think there are other poetry collections that say essentially the same things. I think what made this one stand out is the photography in it, so I think I would burn Film for Her and rewrite the Final Girl Support Group. How? I don't know. I don't want to go into it, but this took me a while to get into. Approximately 170 pages actually. There's this deer antler scene thing. I said this in the vlog, but again, link down below. I would rewrite this. I just don't know how. I guess like get to the point faster, because it did take too long to get into. I don't know. I'm not gonna rack my brain for it. Cut me some slack with this one. I need coffee still, and food. Next 3 are Midnight on Beacon Street. Could not tell you the author's name, to be honest. Dear Girls by Ali Wong. The Eyes Are the Best Part by Monica Kim. All right, I would reread The Eyes Are the Best Part. Gave it 5 stars, so there's that. What was the second one? Dear Girls. Honestly, don't take this the wrong way, but I think I would burn that one just because there are so many memoirs out there that I would read for the first time instead of rereading this one. I learned about her life. I learned a lot of things about her and the comedy industry and all that. So I think I'm okay with burning that. Midnight on Beacon Street. I got this one from the library. It's a really short book. I read it on sprints with Gavin actually. My whole life revolved around Gavin in March. And I would rewrite it to make it a little bit creepier. I gave Midnight on Beacon Street 3 stars. I thought it was really good in terms of making it a cozy horror, as well as not making our main character be not like other girls, because she loved the Halloween franchise, she loved Halloween in general and horror movies, but there are so many books out there that have female main characters specifically who just think they're the coolest people in the world because they like horror and wear black and they listen to rock music. This just didn't do that. So I appreciated that quite a bit. It's a love letter to vintage horror movies, as the back of the book says, but it could have been a lot creepier. I think a lot of people who read this book went into it expecting more intense horror scenes and just something creepy with this babysitter or whatever, not cozy horror. I had like zero expectations, so I enjoyed it. It was just 3 stars because towards the end I was ready for it to be over, and it took me way longer than it should have to read a less than 300 page book. And I didn't really understand the plot, to be honest. Like, what was the point? Like, nothing really happened. And that's what a lot of Goodreads reviews say. But I don't know, I just liked the other elements of it that weren't the horror parts. Okay, next we have Stitches by Hirokatsu Kihara and illustrated by Junji Ito, who you know I love. Fever Dream by Samantha Schweblin. I kept thinking this said Samantha. There's no H there. This is a translated fiction from Spanish, I think. Then Mermaid Saga Volume 1. Okay, I would burn Mermaid Saga Volume 1 for the same reasons as I burned Mermaid Saga Volume 2. I also gave this one 3 stars. Okay, so first of all, this is not a manga. It's actual prose, which I appreciated actually. I think there were some stories that I would rewrite. There were 2 that were a little too similar and they were back to back, so I thought that was weird. So maybe I would rewrite one of those. There were a couple that just weren't hitting, that weren't really all that creepy, and the only thing that made it creepy was Junji Ito's art. But nevertheless, I gave this 4 stars, but I would rewrite it for those reasons. And then I would absolutely reread Fever Dream. I read this in a day, less than a day. It's very, very quick. There are no chapters though, but the font is like middle grade size font. I'm just gonna say what everyone says about it, that it does really feel like a fever dream. I couldn't tell you anything about it, that's why I would reread it, but I was engaged the entire time. Like, there were horses involved, there was a hospital, there's not really a plot that I was able to grasp onto. I gave this 3 stars, but I think upon reread, I would appreciate it more. It was just a quick run through for the first time. But I'm glad I own this book and that it's a weird horror that I am willing to reread. Translated fiction has really been doing it for me this year. Oh, we're on our last 3. Oh, 24! 8 rounds, even. Amazing. Okay, Dear Mothman by Robin Gao, I'm not sure. Bride by Ali Hazelwood, and A Love Song for Ricky Wilde. Okay, Dear Mothman I got from the library. It's a middle grade, written in epistolary format. It's about this trans boy whose best friend was also trans and the only other trans boy in their class. So, you know, they stuck together through understanding what was happening with themselves and understanding how to navigate the world and who to inform about their new name and how to come out and stuff like that. But we're following Noah. I forgot his best friend's name. Liam, I think. He died from a car crash and he also loved cryptids, specifically Mothman. So Noah starts writing letters to Mothman and it's become his like sole mission to find Mothman, and he gets a couple friends involved, and there's something that happened that was really intense towards the middle of the book that made the story shift a little bit, and I just wasn't expecting to love it so much. Gave it 4 stars. It's a middle grade. It was really fucking good. It was just, you know, I'm not the target audience, so there were some parts that I just like didn't care to read about, but it was really good, and I think I would reread that one. Especially compared to these 2, I would reread that one. I would rewrite A Love Song for Ricky Wilde. I don't know how, really. There were some parts that were just like slower, and just again the writing felt like it didn't flow too well at some parts. I didn't feel too attached to the characters. I don't know if I liked being in our main character's head for some parts. The first half was a lot slower than the second half. I enjoyed the second half more, so rewrite something from the first half. And then I would burn Bride. I gave Bride 3 stars. I understand the hype, okay? I understand it. I don't understand why people are obsessed with this knot situation, like K-N-O-T. If you know, you know. It's at the end. I hated all the sex scenes involving the knot. But I do understand the hype, especially because this is something new from Ali Hazelwood in terms of like, you know, the paranormal aspect of it. Some of the scenes were really cute. It's an arranged forced marriage, forced proximity, enemies to lovers, I think. It's a werewolf and a vampire. There's this alliance. I didn't really care for the fantasy elements of this because Allie Hazelwood's a romance writer, okay? Not a fantasy writer. I wouldn't reread this. Thank you so much to my patron Shay for sending me this though. I am keeping it on my shelves, but I don't think it's worth the hype. But I understand the hype, if that makes sense. I will link the vlog down below where I read this. So I can end this now. Let's put the wave emoji in the comments down below if you made it to the end of this video to represent a study in drowning just because it was at the top of the pile. Let me know if you've read any of these books. Talk to me in the comments about whether you agree, disagree, whatever you want. Otherwise, just leave that emoji. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you had a vampy day. Don't forget to do some self-care today, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!